I was a field staff organizer for Dr. King. I was among the first 10 people sent into Selma to mobilize and organize for the right to vote. And certainly Bloody Sunday had an impact because I was on the bridge on Bloody Sunday when blood flowed like a river.
There was a lot of turmoil going on back in those days.
As Les Brown said once, "Mama, why can't I live here?" Couldn't live there. She said, "No, you can't live here." "Why can't I live here? It's just the way it is." Shut up. No more shutting up. You don't have to shut up now.
As the folk song Pass It On reminds us, our freedoms don't come like a bird on the wing. Freedom is a hard-won thing. And every generation has to win them again.
Every opportunity that I have had in my life has been derived from the doors that Martin Luther King opened in the Civil Rights Movement.
It's one thing to ask society to change. It's another thing for there to be legislation on the books trying to create and force that change.
The Civil Rights Act of 1964 did not happen instantaneously. It was the result of decades of work beforehand, and the struggle to fully implement its sweeping provisions continues today.
It is probably the most important piece of legislation ever passed by Congress.
The courts have really emasculated in many ways the civil rights injunction today, but its importance was significant, and I think it really did transform society.
There can be no mention of heroes in the American story without mentioning Dr. Martin Luther King. The Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act.
The 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act really was used to break the back of segregation in the South and opening opportunities for voting in the North and the South.
Well, I think the 1964 Civil Rights Act was a commitment by the nation to end segregation.
The Civil Rights Act has enhanced our dignity as Americans.
The Civil Rights Act started out by just saying you can't do that. We don't care what you think, but you cannot act that way. We're going to have an inclusive society.
Because of the Civil Rights Act, there's increased access to education, increased access to employment, and as a result, increased access to economic opportunity.
In the battle for equality and for humanity, there was no more powerful weapon than these two pieces of legislation.
It gave everyone a right to public accommodations. It gave everyone a right to register to vote. And it also gave everyone the right to vote and gave someone like myself the right to become a candidate and become elected to public office, be retained by the voters, and serve for 20 years.
Without that act laying the groundwork for that change of our culture, I wouldn't be where I am, and so many people. We wouldn't have an African-American president. We wouldn't have the opportunities that we do have today.
I know we give a lot of credit to both Presidents Kennedy and Johnson, but I'm really going to give the credit to the people in the United States.
That Voting Rights Act then, and the recent court decisions, and the recent voter suppression, and the misuse of rich money in politics is threatening all that we've built back in the 60s.
Our experience teaches us that we must always have laws in place that will enable us to prevent those who would take our rights away from us.
Voting is too important for this country not to have that kind of protection, not just in the South, but all over the country.
There are still efforts throughout this country and throughout factions within this country to suppress the very vital and important right to vote.
It's important to make sure those safeguards are always there. If one person is damaged by removing voting rights protections, that's one person too many.
I think it's a work in progress. We're not there yet, but from 1964 to 2015, have we progressed? Yes, and we're going forward.
We all know that the Civil Rights Act has not yet achieved all that it could promise. But it will. It will soon. Because so many people
in so many ways, have already paid the purchase price